Hey, my name's Jordan Hunt. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a paramedic with Portland Fire and Rescue Station 21 downtown. It's the kind of job where you see people on the absolute worst days of their lives, show up when everything's falling apart, and do what you can to hold the pieces together long enough to get them to a hospital. Some days you save lives, other days you just bear witness to the end of them. And those are the ones that stick with you long after your shift ends. I live in a studio apartment in Selwood, nothing fancy, just a place to crash between the 24-hour shifts that make up my life. The apartment's got a view of the Willamette River if you lean out the window far enough, a kitchen I barely use because I'm either eating at the station or grabbing Thai food from the place downstairs, and a bedroom that still smells faintly like the lavender candles my ex-girlfriend left behind 2 years ago before she decided, dating a guy with PTSD and night terrors wasn't what she signed up for. Can't say I blamed her. The PTSD part, that came from a call 2 years back. November 14th, to be exact. The kind of date that gets burned into your brain whether you want it there or not. Residential fire, apartment building in Northeast Portland. Family of 4 trapped on the 3rd floor. My partner Alex Chen and me, we got them out. Went back in for an elderly man on the 4th floor. The structure wasn't stable. Ceiling was groaning like it was about to give. But Alex went ahead anyway because that's who he was. Always first in, always the one who'd risk it. I was right behind him when the roof came down. I got pulled back by our captain. Alex got buried under 3 tons of burning timber and drywall. They found his body 6 hours later after the fire was out. I don't sleep great anymore. See a therapist once a month. Dr. Sarah Kim over in Northwest Portland. Take meds that keep the panic attacks mostly under control. And I've learned to function around the nightmares. Most days I'm fine, good at my job, calm under pressure. The guy people want showing up when they dial 911. But fires, I avoid those when I can. Request medical calls, overdoses, car accidents, anything but fires. My captain understands. The crew knows. Nobody pushes it. That afternoon in early November started out routine. Rainy because it's Portland and it's always raining from October through June, the kind of steady drizzle that soaks you through if you're out in it for more than 5 minutes. We'd already run 3 calls that shift, nothing major. Diabetic emergency at a retirement home. Car accident on Burnside with minor injuries. Drunk guy who'd passed out on a MAX train and needed a welfare check. I was in the station bay cleaning out the rig with my partner, Mike Orozco, when the radio crackled. Medical emergency. Female 25, panic attack. Roasters Coffee, Southeast Hawthorne. Requesting paramedic response. Requesting paramedic response. Mike looked at me, eyebrows up. Coffee shop panic attack. Think she had too much espresso? I grabbed my kit. Let's find out. The drive took maybe 8 minutes through midday traffic. Windshield wipers slapping at the rain. Roasters was one of those Portland staples. Exposed brick walls covered in local art. Mismatched furniture. The kind of place where everyone's on a laptop pretending to write the next great American novel while drinking $6 lattes. When we pulled up, I could see people clustered near the windows. That awkward hovering you get when something's gone wrong, but nobody knows what to do about it. Inside, the shop smelled like burnt coffee and wet wool. A barista, young woman with purple hair and wide eyes, met us at the door. She's in the back, behind the counter. I think she's having a panic attack or something. She just collapsed. We followed her through the maze of tables where customers were trying. Very hard to look like they weren't staring. Behind the espresso machine, curled up on the floor against the wall, was a woman about my age. Her dark hair was falling out of a ponytail, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and she was gasping like she'd just sprinted a mile, hands trembling as they gripped her knees. Her eyes were unfocused, locked on something only she could see. I knelt down next to her, keeping my voice calm and low. Hey, I'm Jordan. I'm a paramedic. Can you hear me? She nodded but didn't speak, couldn't speak, her chest heaving with shallow, rapid breaths that weren't getting her any oxygen. Classic panic attack. I'd seen dozens of them. Hell, I'd had a few myself in the months after Alex died. Mike sat up behind me, getting vitals while I focused on her. I reached out slowly, let her see my hand coming, and touched her shoulder. You're safe. I need you to try and breathe with me, okay? In through your nose for 4 counts. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. She tried, choked on it, started crying harder. I stayed with her, hand steady on her shoulder, talking her through it again and again until finally Slowly, her breathing started to even out. It took maybe 10 minutes, felt like an hour, but eventually she was gulping air instead of hyperventilating. Tears still streaming, but the worst of it passing. Better, I said softly. You're doing great. What's your name? Riley, she whispered, voice wrecked. Riley Foster. Okay, Riley, has this happened before? She nodded, wouldn't meet my eyes. A few times. Since it happened. Since what happened? She shook her head and I didn't push. The purple-haired barista, her name tag said Jasmine, leaned down. Her sister's on the way? I called her. About 5 minutes later, the door chimed and a woman rushed in, still in scrubs with a raincoat thrown over them. She had the same dark hair as Riley, same bone structure, but her face was tight with worry and exhaustion. She spotted us and made a beeline over. Riley, oh my God, again? Riley turned away, pulling her knees tighter to her chest, and I saw the shame wash over her. The woman in scrubs knelt beside me, looked at Riley with a mix of love and frustration that I recognized. Caretaker burnout. I'd seen it in families at the hospital. I'm Morgan, she said to me, then paused, squinting. Wait, you work with Station 21, right? I'm an ER nurse at OHSU. I've seen you on drop-offs. Yeah, I said, standing up to give them space. Small world. Morgan helped Riley to her feet, wrapped an arm around her. Thank you. I've got her from here. I should have left it at that. Done my job, cleared the scene, moved on to the next call. But something stopped me. The look on Riley's face, maybe. Or the way Morgan's hands were shaking almost as bad as her. Sisters, I followed them. Outside, where the rain had picked up. Helped get Riley into Morgan's car. Morgan turned to me, lowering her voice. This started 4 months ago. She lost someone. Her fiancé, Derek. Climbing accident at Multnomah Falls. She was there. She saw it happen. The words hit me like cold water. I knew that specific flavor of trauma, the kind that comes from watching someone you care about die and not being able to stop it. I'm sorry, I managed. Morgan's eyes were desperate. She won't talk about it. Won't see a therapist. Just works herself into the ground and then this happens. I don't know what to do anymore. She paused, looked at me like she was about to ask something crazy and knew it. You were good with her in there. I know this is weird, but could you check on her? Tomorrow, maybe? Just stop by the shop. She won't talk to me, but maybe someone who isn't family. I hesitated. It was a strange ask, probably crossing some professional line I couldn't quite name. But I looked at Riley in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead with that hollow expression I'd seen in my own mirror plenty of times. Yeah, I said, I can do that. The next morning, I woke up from the usual nightmare. Alex's voice calling for help under rubble I couldn't move, and couldn't get back to sleep. Around 11, I headed to Roasters. Told myself I was just doing a welfare check, nothing more. Riley was behind the counter when I walked in, looking pale and exhausted. When she saw me, she froze, coffee pot in hand. I ordered a drip coffee, casual as I could. Just wanted to see how you're doing. She set the pot down carefully. I'm fine. Thanks for yesterday. Mind if I sit for a minute? Her break was in 10. She brought her own coffee over to a corner table, sat across from me with her hands wrapped around the mug like she was cold. My sister sent you, didn't she? She's worried. But I came because I wanted to. Why? You don't even know me. I took a breath, decided on the truth. I lost someone too. On a call 2 years ago. My partner. I know what it's like when everyone tells you to just move on like it's that easy. Her eyes met mine, searching. What happened? Fire. Building collapsed. I got out. Alex didn't. The silence stretched between us, not awkward, just heavy with understanding. Finally, she spoke. Derek fell. We were climbing at Multnomah Falls. The rocks were wet. He just slipped. I watched him fall 200 feet. I heard everything. Her voice broke on the last word. And I reached across the table, steadied her shaking mug before it spilled. I'm sorry. We talked for another 20 minutes, carefully at first, then more openly. I gave her my number, told her if she ever needed to talk or not talk, just exist somewhere that wasn't alone to call me. She looked at me like she was trying to figure out if I was real. Over the next week, I stopped by twice more. Just coffee, just presents. Then, on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after we met, my phone exploded with missed calls. Riley's voicemail was barely coherent. Jordan, I can't breathe. I'm at the waterfall. I don't know why I came here, please. I drove to Multnomah Falls, doing 80 on the highway. Found her on a bench near the trailhead, soaked from the rain, staring at the falls like she was seeing ghosts. I sat beside her without a word. And when she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. I thought facing it would make it stop, but I just see him falling, over and over. I drove her home that night, watched Morgan wrap her in blankets, and when Riley asked if I'd come back tomorrow, I said yes without hesitation, because I knew what it was like to drown in trauma. And sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to sit in the dark with you until you remember how to find the light. The weeks after that night at Multnomah Falls blurred together in a way I didn't expect. I started showing up at roasters too, sometimes 3 times a week. Not because Morgan asked me to anymore, but because I wanted to. Riley and I fell into this rhythm where we'd grab coffee during her breaks or walk along the waterfront, park when she got off work, following the Willamette River while the rain came down and the city lights reflected off the water like scattered stars. We didn't always talk about the heavy stuff. Sometimes we just existed in the same space, her telling me about a difficult customer or me complaining about paperwork at the station, normal conversations that felt like a lifeline when you're used to drowning in your own head. But slowly, bit by bit, she started opening up about Derek. He was a photographer. She told me one evening as we sat under the shelter at Waterfront Park watching the river churn past. 27, obsessed with landscape shots, always chasing the perfect light. We met at Powell's Books 3 years ago in the travel section. He was looking for a guide to Iceland. I was grabbing something for work, and we ended up talking for 2 hours in the coffee shop upstairs. Her voice got softer when she talked about him, like she was handling something fragile. He proposed at Crater Lake, drove us up there at 4 in the morning so we could watch the sunrise. Had the ring in his camera bag the whole time, waited until the light hit the water just right. She laughed, but it was sad. He said he wanted to capture the moment I said yes. Diane Eichel Derek, always thinking about the shot. The accident happened on what was supposed to be an easy hike. Multnomah Falls, the tourist trail up to the bridge, nothing technical. But Derek wanted photos from a spot off the main path. Some viewpoint he'd scouted online. The rocks were slick from the rain and he stepped wrong. Riley was 10 feet behind him, saw him slip, watched him try to catch himself. Heard him call her name as he went over the edge. I couldn't get to him, she said, and her hand started shaking around her coffee cup. Other hikers called 911, but he was already gone. They made me wait at the top while they went down. I just stood there for 2 hours knowing he was dead, and I couldn't do anything about it. I knew that feeling, the helplessness that eats you from the inside out. The night I told her the full story about Alex. We were sitting at Lansu Chinese Garden, this quiet spot downtown where Alex used to drag me when the job got too heavy. It was raining, always raining, and we sat under a covered pavilion, watching koi drift through the pond like they had all the time in the world. Alex was my mentor, I started, surprised at how hard it still was to say his name out loud. I was fresh out of training, cocky and stupid, thought I knew everything. He taught me how to actually do the job, how to talk to people on the worst day of their lives, how to stay calm when everything's chaos. The fire, we'd already gotten a family out, but there was an elderly man still inside. Alex went ahead, I was right behind him, and the ceiling just gave. I stopped, had to swallow past the lump in my throat. The captain pulled me out, physically restrained me from going back in. I watched the building come down knowing Alex was inside. His funeral was the worst day of my life, and for a year after I couldn't do my job without seeing it happen again. Riley was crying, not for herself this time, but for me, and she took my hand. You tried to save him. Not hard enough, I said, and the guilt tasted bitter even 2 years later. That's not true. You would have died, too. Some days I wish I had. Her grip tightened. I'm glad you didn't. Getting Riley into therapy wasn't easy. She'd shut down every time Morgan brought it up. Said therapists couldn't understand, that talking wouldn't bring Derek back. But one afternoon when we were walking through the Pearl District, I stopped outside an office building. My therapist's in here, I said. Dr. Sarah Kim. She specializes in PTSD. Helped me more than I can explain. What if you just met her once? I'll come with you if you want. Riley looked at the building like it might bite her. I don't know. No pressure. But you don't have to keep carrying this alone. She agreed, and the following week we sat in Dr. Kim's office. A cozy space filled with plants and soft lighting that somehow made it easier to talk about hard things. Riley was tense, picking at her fingernails while Dr. Kim explained how trauma rewires your brain, how panic attacks are your nervous system trying to protect you from danger even when there isn't any. What you experienced watching someone you love die, that's one of the most severe forms of trauma, Dr. Kim said gently. Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's just stuck in survival mode. She suggested EMDR therapy, something about processing traumatic memories through bilateral stimulation. That sounded weird, but apparently worked. Riley was skeptical, but she was desperate enough to try. After the session, we sat in my truck in the parking garage and Riley looked wrung out. That was harder than I thought it'd be. First one always is, but you showed up. That's what matters. Will you keep coming with me? As long as you need. Meanwhile, Morgan was falling apart in her own way. I met her for coffee one afternoon, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her boyfriend had just broken up with her, said she was never present, that it was always about Riley and never about them. I don't know what he expected, Morgan said, angry tears in her eyes. She's my sister. I can't just abandon her. You're not abandoning her by taking care of yourself. You're drowning too. She broke then, admitted she was furious at Derek for dying, at Riley for not getting better faster, at herself for feeling that way. I told her about caretaker burnout, suggested she find her own therapist, her own support system. She resisted at first, but eventually she started going to a group for family members of trauma survivors. By month 2, I convinced Riley to try the PTSD support group I'd been attending on and off. It met weekly at a community center in Northeast Portland, a mix of first responders, veterans, accident survivors, people carrying wounds you couldn't see but that shaped everything about how they moved through the world. The first night, Riley sat beside me in the circle of folding chairs, her leg bouncing with anxiety. When it was her turn to share, she spoke so quietly people had to lean in to hear. I'm Riley. My fiancé fell to his death 4 months ago while I watched. I can't stop seeing it. The group responded with the kind of understanding you only get from people who've lived it. Thank you for sharing. We're glad you're here. No fixing, no advice, just presence. After the meeting, Riley grabbed my arm. They get it. They actually get it. Yeah, that's why it helps. Thanksgiving week hit Riley hard. First major holiday without Derek. And she'd planned to spend it alone because she couldn't face her parents in Seattle and Morgan. Was going up there. I invited her to my partner Mike's house, said it was just a casual thing with his family, low pressure. She came, but halfway through dinner, she saw Mike's cousin and his fiancé showing off their engagement ring, and I watched her face crumble. She excused herself to the bathroom, and I found her 10 minutes later sitting on the floor having a panic attack. I sat down next to her, didn't say anything at first, just started the grounding exercise Dr. Kim had taught us. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch. She worked through it, came back to herself, and looked at me with this mix of embarrassment and gratitude. I thought I was doing better. You are. Progress isn't a straight line. You're allowed to have hard days. I had my own breakdown a week later. The station got called to a structure fire, and I couldn't avoid it this time. We pulled up, smoke pouring from the 2nd story of a house, and I froze. Literally couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Just stood there seeing Alex buried under rubble instead of the scene in front of me. Mike covered for me. But I spent the rest of the shift in the truck having a panic attack. That night I called Riley, something I'd never done before, and she showed up at my apartment without hesitation. I can't do my job, I told her. Sitting on my couch feeling like the biggest failure in the world. Alex died and I can't even go into a fire anymore. Riley sat next to me, and for the first time, she was the one holding me together. You've been there for me every single step. Let me be here for you now. What would Alex say? I had to think about it. He'd tell me to stop being a martyr, that I'm allowed to be scared. Then be scared, but don't give up. I broke down for real then, cried about Alex in a way I hadn't since the funeral, and Riley just sat with me until I was empty. By mid-December, she told me the 6-month anniversary of Derek's death was coming, and she was dreading it. More nightmares, more panic attacks, the grief fresh all over again. We were at the coffee shop when she said it. I need to go back to the falls, for real this time, to say goodbye properly. Are you sure that's a good idea? No, but I need to try. Will you come? Of course. We set the date for December 28th, the exact anniversary. Morgan found out and lost it. Said it was reckless and dangerous, but Riley stood firm. It's my choice. I need to do this. As the day approached, I wasn't sure if I was helping her heal or watching her walk toward another breakdown. But I'd promised to be there, and I wasn't going to back out now. December 28th came in cold and gray, the kind of Portland winter, morning where the sky and the Columbia, River Gorge blend into one, massive sheet of clouds that feels like it's pressing down on you. I picked Riley up at 7, and she climbed into my truck looking pale but determined, wearing hiking boots I'd never seen before and carrying a small backpack. Morgan met us in the Multnomah Falls parking lot, her face tight with worry, but she'd agreed to come after Riley. Insisted this was happening with or without her. The lot was nearly empty. Just a few hardcore hikers and tourists who didn't mind the cold. We started up the trail in silence, Riley leading the way like she needed to prove she could do this on her own terms. The path was slick with rain and ice, and I stayed close behind her, not hovering but ready, while Morgan brought up the rear. It took us 40 minutes to reach the spot where Derek had fallen, a viewpoint off the main trail that offered a clear view of the falls and the rocks below. Riley stopped about 10 feet from the edge, her breathing already coming faster, and I could see her hands starting to shake. "You okay?" I asked quietly. She nodded but didn't speak, just stood there staring at the exact place her life had shattered 6 months ago. After a long moment, she pulled a folded letter from her jacket pocket, the paper worn like she'd been carrying it for weeks. "Dr. Kim had me write this," she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waterfall. "For closure or whatever. I've been too scared to read it out loud." Morgan stepped closer and Riley unfolded the letter with trembling fingers. She started reading, and I watched tears stream down her face as the words came out. "Derek, I'm so angry at you. For being reckless, for not listening when I said the rocks looked slippery, for leaving me here to figure out how to keep breathing when half of me died with you. But I'm also grateful for the 3 years we had. For every sunrise you dragged me out of bed to photograph. For teaching me that life's too short not to chase the things that make you feel alive." Her voice broke, but she kept going. "I'm not okay yet. Some days I can barely get out of bed. But I'm trying to live in a way that would make you proud. I'm getting help. I'm letting people in. I'm learning that grief doesn't mean I have to stop living. I'll always love you. But I have to let you go now so I can keep moving forward." She folded the letter back up, knelt down, and placed it under a rock at the base of a tree near the viewpoint. A memorial for a man who'd loved this place enough to die here. When she stood back up, she looked at Morgan and me with something like peace in her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Morgan pulled her into a hug, both of them crying, and I stepped back to give them space. On the hike back down, Riley was quiet but lighter somehow, like she'd left some of the weight behind on that mountain. She fell asleep in my truck on the drive home, and I glanced over at her peaceful face, thinking maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. The months after that were different. Riley kept up her therapy, graduated from weekly sessions to every other week, and finished the full EMDR protocol. The nightmares didn't disappear completely, but they came less often, and when they did, she knew how to handle them. She started volunteering for a crisis text line, helping other people through their worst moments, and told me it gave her a sense of purpose she'd been missing. I got back to full fire duty around the same time. Took months of working through it with Dr. Kim and gradual exposure, but I did it. The first time I went into a burning building after Alex died, I was terrified, but I made it through. Mike clapped me on the back after, said he was proud of me, and I realized I was kind of proud of myself too. Morgan started dating someone she met at her caretaker support group, a guy who understood boundaries and didn't expect her to set herself on fire to keep other people warm. Her relationship with Riley shifted into something healthier, less codependent, more like actual sisters who supported each other without drowning together. 8 months after Derek's death, Riley did something I didn't see coming. She went through all the photos Derek had taken, the ones she'd boxed up and shoved in a closet because looking at them hurt too much. She created a memorial album, picked out his best work, and donated his camera equipment to a youth photography program in his name. Then she hosted a small gathering at her apartment, invited friends and family, and shared memories of him without falling apart. I was there, standing in the corner with a beer, watching her laugh at a story one of Derek's college buddies was telling, and I caught Morgan's eye across the room. She mouthed, "Thank you," and I just nodded because I hadn't saved Riley. She'd done that herself. I'd just walked beside her while she figured it out. Around month 9, I visited Alex's grave for the first time in over a year. Brought his favorite coffee, the ridiculously expensive kind from that place on Division he used to drag me to, and sat on the wet grass talking to a headstone like he could hear me. "I think I'm finally forgiving myself," I told him. "There's this woman, Riley, she lost someone too. Helping her, it helped me see that you wouldn't want me stuck in that night forever. So I'm trying, man. I'm really trying. Miss you every day, but I'm learning to live with it." I started mentoring a new paramedic after that. A kid fresh out of training who reminded me of myself 7 years ago. Passed on everything Alex had taught me about staying calm, reading people, knowing when to push and when to just listen. It felt like coming full circle. 1 year to the day after Derek died, Riley proposed something that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. "Let's go hiking." Not Multnomah Falls, somewhere new. Silver Falls State Park. Fresh start. She invited me, Morgan, and a handful of close friends, and we made a day of it. The trail wound through old growth, forest, and past waterfalls that didn't carry the weight of tragedy. Just beauty. I watched Riley stop at one overlook, pull out her phone, and take a photo. "Derek would have loved this light," she said, and there was sadness in her voice, but also something else. Gratitude, maybe, or acceptance. We had a picnic at the top, and Morgan teased Riley about how much time we spent together. "You two would be cute together, you know." Riley and I exchanged a look, and I felt something shift in the air between us, a possibility we'd both been dancing around for months. "Maybe someday," I said, "but right now this is enough." Riley smiled. More than enough. 18 months after that first panic attack at Roasters, I stood in front of our PTSD support group helping Riley co-facilitate the meeting. A new member, a veteran with fresh wounds, asked the question everyone asks eventually. "Does it ever stop hurting?" Riley answered first, her voice steady and sure. "No. But the hurt becomes part of you instead of all of you. You learn to build new joy alongside the grief, and that makes the weight bearable." The veteran turned to me. "How did you keep going?" I looked at Riley, at the group, at all these people who'd shown up week after week to sit in their pain together. "I let someone help me, and then I helped someone else. That's how we survive, together." After the meeting, Riley and I walked to our cars through another typical Portland rainstorm, and she turned to me before getting in. "Remember that first day when you showed up at the coffee shop?" I laughed. "You looked like you wanted to throw your coffee at me." "I kinda did, but you didn't give up. Neither did you." We hugged, long and warm, the kind of embrace between people who've been through hell, together and made it out the other side. She pulled back with that smile. I'd watched slowly return over the past year and a half. Same time next week? Wouldn't miss it. Driving home through the rain-slicked streets, I thought about how strange life is, how a random 911 call can change everything, how showing up for someone else's pain can somehow heal your own. Riley didn't need me to save her. She needed someone who understood. That healing isn't about forgetting the people we've lost or pretending the trauma never happened. It's about learning to carry the weight together, making room for light alongside the darkness, and choosing every single day to keep moving forward even when it feels impossible. We didn't erase the pain. We just learned to live with it, and in doing that, we both learned to live again. Sometimes that's all anyone needs. One person willing to stay when it gets hard, to sit in the dark until you remember how to find your way back to the light.